And hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial we'll be taking a look at D2. It is a scripting language that turns your scripts into this. Isn't that actually awesome? So it converts your scripts into these diagrams that you can use. Now you have two choices you can do. You can either install it via the install here and you can just curl it, or you can go to this here and you can install it like this. So there's Windows, there's Linux, there's Mac OS, standalone from source, whichever you prefer. Or you can do what I'm going to do right now and just go to the playground. The playground is basically an online version so that you don't have to download it. And you'll notice there's a lot of things you can use. Here's the layout. So there's that. You can choose ALK and you'll notice it updates here depending on what's happening. And then here you have the theme, so you can also choose a bunch of themes if you want, and if you want it to be in sketch mode so it looks like it has been drawn by hand. Alright, so let's get started. So this is the basics. If you have an X or any word here, so this could be TV, and in this pointers is a dash and then a greater than symbol, and then what else, this could be like remote. If you run that, you can press on this compile or just Control and S. Then here you'll see we have TV and remote. And there's an arrow pointing towards it. You can also put text here in the middle, such as controlled with. So now it's TV controlled with remote. So this is how you can do a very basic one. You can also use two dashes here if you don't want that arrow there. As you can see, now there's no arrow, it's just a straight line. And you don't need this, you can remove that if you want to, and then there's no text in the middle here either. So that's the most basic you can go. And of course you can go multiple lines. For example, there's TV, and then you can go TV, user, and then used by, and then you can say Mac OS, and that's an operating system. And like that, we have created this diagram here. So this TV and a remote, they are linked. This TV is used by this user, and Mac OS, that's an operating system. So each line represents a new connection. Now this block here, that is considered a shape. So if we just do TV here, we have a shape. Now you can use this in any way you want. As an example, this is a shape. This is a shape. This is a shape. This a shape. So you can use special characters such as quotation marks. As you can see here, you'll notice that doesn't affect it. And then this is a shape. There you go. Notice all of these, they are shapes. They're their own squares. However, take note of this last one here. If you use one dash, it is okay. But as soon as you use two dashes, it's going to create a new link, as you can see there. So one dash means it's a piece of text. Two dashes means it's a link. Cool. You can also create labels. So here we could say AZ, and that is Azure, Microsoft Azure, which is a cloud platform. So we save that. Now you can also go az.shape. So now we're specifying the shape of this label here. And you just say colon. And here you could say it's a cloud because this is a cloud platform. So it would make sense to make it a cloud. Now, of course, you're not limited to just two shapes here. You can also have things such as page. And I will give you a page like item. Also go document. They'll give you a document. User, or there should be person, not user. I will give you a person shape. Diamond. Text. So then it's just a piece of text. Code. So that's a code snippet. Class. And there are of course a lot more. Let's just do one more. SQL table. And there you go. Now there are a lot more of these. However, I'm not going to cover all of them because there's a lot, but you can find more of them here on the docs. You can actually just go here to shapes and scroll down. Here you'll see a list of all the ones you can use. Anyhow, so let's talk more about linking. So let's stick with Microsoft Azure. We can just go cloud. I'm just going to do a random links. It's not necessarily needed that they need to make sense in this scenario. But now here we could say Google Cloud. And if we do this, we are saying Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure, they are linked. And you can see there's arrows pointing to each one. You can also do this, and now AZ will point to Google Cloud, as you can see there. And if you do this, then Google Cloud will point to AZ, Microsoft Azure. And of course, you can just use dash dash as we said, and that will have no error whatsoever. So there are 4 ways to define how they should be linked. Dash dash, dash greater than, lesser than dash, or lesser than dash greater than. And this hashtag here, that means it's a comment, meaning it will not be read by the compiler. Anything that starts with a hashtag is a comment. So now, if we save it, you'll notice nothing here happens. If we were to do this, then now this link will no longer exist because this is a comment. So comments will not be read. And of course you can add your text here if you want to put a connection label here, such as cloud platforms. And now they're linked with the text cloud platforms. Now take note, if you have this here and you do something like this, and then here we could maybe also go GC, which is Google Cloud, and you go here and say AZ GC, you'll notice it will actually create new linkings here. So when you create this here, when you create a label, that means you should always use that label or it will create a new link. So this here, that's a new link. This here as well. The AZ and GC, they are these links here. So take note of that the labels are important if you decide to use them. If you don't use them or you don't decide to use them, you could of course do something like this. And Google Cloud, that can also be linked to AZ. And now you'll notice Google Cloud here is linked to both this Microsoft Azure and this one. Even though they're both the same, this one is just full text whilst this one is a label. So take note, if you create a label of something, use that label and not the full text. Cool. Now let's say you have a very long description or something here, such as Google Cloud computing platform. And you're noticing it's kind of like breaking the line, and you might not like that. What you could do then is say dash dash backslash, and that means go to the next line. So now I can do this. I'm allowed to go to the next line. I'm allowed to press enter and make Microsoft Azure on the next line. And now you can create your arrow, and in here you can say computing platform. So you'll notice here it formatted it back, but if you're using a text editor, you could use dash dash backslash and then press enter and do it on the next line. Same here. But yeah, as I said, just dash dash backslash, you can go to the next line. That is an optional feature. If you're using a normal text editor, it won't necessarily format it back like it's doing here. But if you want to go to the next line, then you can use this and you can split things up into 2 lines. Now you are allowed to repeat connections, such as AZ and GC. So that is allowed, and it's copied out a few times. And with these two here, let's say these are backup. So let's say you have an Azure platform, but it's also being backed up on the Google Cloud platform. So if the Azure one fails, it gets backed up on the Google Cloud one. Now if you do this, you'll actually receive something like this. So you can repeat connections if you want to. Maybe you want to emphasize something, and this is how you can do it. You can repeat that connection multiple times. Now, as I said before, you could do something like this, AZ, GC, and then GC, and then let's go here and say AWS, GC as well. You could do something like this. So now both AWS and Microsoft Azure is pointing to Google Cloud. But what you could also do is this, AWS. And that will generate the same thing but on one line. So you could do it on one line by just adding these arrows here. And then of course, if you add a label here, you could say backup host, then you can actually see that. Now both of them will get that label. Now let's create the daily life of a programmer. We can actually just maybe keep these values there, that could be useful. We can maybe just comment them out. So we wake up, we eat, we code, we sleep. And then from sleep, we wake back up and we repeat that. So now we have this diagram here that is repeating itself, but it's being chained here. So you don't need to constantly split this up into multiple lines. So you don't need to do this and then say eat becomes code, and then code becomes sleep, and then do that. You don't need to do that. You could just do it all in one line. That is perfectly fine. So cycles and chaining is okay. Now you can modify this default arrowhead shape, so that arrow there. Let's actually maybe split this up. So you can just go eat, code, sleep. So it will be the same, but now we just have this split up. Here we can say do first. So now we have a piece of label here that says do first. So we start here. But now if we were to use this, we can modify it. We can say source arrow 1, and it should be arrowhead. And in here you'll notice we actually get the number 1. This just allows us to see which one we are going to modify here now. So now it says 1, and we can say target arrowhead, and then asterisk, and then again we open and closing brackets, shape cloud diamond. So as you can see here, we're giving it a diamond shaped head. Now this asterisk here, that's just a piece of text, so you can remove that without any issue. Same with this do first. This do first isn't required. I just put it there because I thought it might be useful. Same with this source arrowhead. You could just remove that if you want, and you'll still get the same output. This is the only important part, but the source arrowhead that allows you to put an extra label here. So maybe you're referencing this later on. Now you have many of these shapes you can choose from. But again, you can go look at the docs if you want to know more of them. I'm just going to maybe do one more circle. But you have a lot of these shapes you can work with. Cool. Now let's take a look at containers. So let's say we have a server. Now a server can contain a process. So now this is a child container of the server. So server contains this process child. So the server is the parent, the process is the child. And you can of course go deeper and say server.process.threads, and each process can have a bunch of threads. And you can even make that this points to the computer, so the PC.RAM.usage. So now this threads points to the PC RAM usage. And now we can kind of think, okay, so this process threads is what's using the RAM's usage. So it's bumping it up. Or PC.application.wildduck. So now we know these threads are related to this WildDuck application running on the system. Now, of course, this does get dirty, and a lot of people don't like that. So what you could instead do is you could go and you can nest them. So now we could go process, and then we can go process, we can nest that and say threads. Now if we were to just comment these out, now you'll notice we get this again. So you can either use this dot notation, or you could do this. And now we could even maybe go on the server and say application, and in the application we could say WildDuck. So now this server contains this application as well, which contains WildDuck. And in here we could say application process. And that will mean this application is linked to process. And here we could even go, instead of just while duck, we could say while duck server. So now while duck is connected to the server, and this application is linked to the process. And like this, you can become more and more complex with what you want to do. Now we can change the color of this here by going style.fill, and let's go hashtag F00, or rather 0F0. Now this just means green, as you can see here. This uses hexadecimal, so if we go F00, we can also do that, and I will change the color a little bit. So now it's black, that's blue. Up to you how you want to change it. It just uses hex, you just gotta learn that, which takes a couple of seconds even. You can also access the server from inside of the application, and by going underscore, and then we can say dot process dot style dot fill, and here we could go hashtag F00, which means red. Now process is set to red. By using underscore, you're saying, oh, go to the parent process or the parent and select this child inside of it, so process, and then change that styling. So it also supports text in the form of Markdown. So we can just create a box, and this box we can say MD, and the next line we also put a pipe. So this is a pipe symbol. You can usually find this above the backslash, this, or above the enter key on a normal US QWERTY keyboard. And here we could put some Markdown. I am a header. And now here we have a Markdown header. And we can also put things like lists, to do 1, to do 2, or a line of code. And there you go. So it does support text and Markdown as well. Now, as we know, it also supports code. So let's maybe say main.py that calls main.js dot kill processes. So here we have this main.py, and my bad, we can't use dot, so we can just use main.py, and that calls main.js. So this calls that here. Now we can specify code. So let's go main.py explanation, and we can use py, and now we can put code in here. os.call, and this is not valid Python code, it's just me typing dumb stuff. main.js kill process, and here we can just say if, and we can even go then if success return 1. And now here we have some Python code that correlates to this main.py. Now let's just move this line up here. And now let's say we have a main.js explanation which executes JavaScript code. Const kill processes, and then that does stuff and returns. There we go. So now we have two code boxes here, but how do we know which one fits with which? Well, we could actually position them. So here we could say near bottom center. So now we're specifying this explanation box should be near the bottom center or bottom right. And this one on the top, we can specify it should be near the top center. As you can see now, you can even specify center left. And that's in the center but to the left. We can also specify images it should display, such as cool lizard, which has an icon of, and here I have a nice image of a cool bearded dragon. I just paste it here. That should actually be copy image address, paste it here, save it, and now we have a cool lizard with the image of a bearded dragon. Now to make it look better, you can also give it a shape of image. And now it actually looks good. Now I'm just going to go CL, and here we can just say CL, and CL can link to this image of a worm. So let's just copy image address and we can go food needs food, icon, shape, image, and food eats. And this cool lizard eats this worm, and we can maybe change needs foods to worm. So now I have two images here that are linked. Now, one of the most important use cases of diagrams such as these is for SQL tables. Now, D2 has one of the best support for SQL tables. For example, let's go users. So this users table has a shape of an SQL table, an ID, which is of type int, which it can automatically understand, and we can add it in constraint as primary key. If you don't know anything about SQL, it is fine, but this just allows you to do a few cool things. And then created at the time stamp, so the date they signed up, with time zone. Now if you save that, you'll actually notice we have an ID, its description, so this is a description, and then its constraint. So here it has PK for primary key. We can also create another table such as data, so this could be the user's data, shape, again SQL table, ID, and we can just copy all of this. Here we could say user ID, which has a constraint of foreign key, and then dark mode, which is a boolean, and a username, which has a constraint of unique. So this username needs to be unique. So now we have two tables here, and we can easily link them by going users.id points to data.userID. And there's of course a lot more I can teach you about this, and it can go on forever and forever. But for right now, I think this is more than enough. I highly recommend you go check out the docs because there are so much you could still learn from here. Like classes, sequence diagrams, how to do customizations, more in-depth items like strings, comments, overrides, auto format, extensions. There's so much you can learn from this. But I'm going to leave it off here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all again in the next tutorial.